Welcome back, everyone. All right, let's just jump right in, shall we? Today, we are diving into a really fascinating explainer that totally bridges the gap between deep, spiritual philosophy and incredibly practical, modern-day communication. We're unpacking a lecture from the Jungbub teachings, which is essentially a framework that looks at the actual energetic mechanics of how we interact with each other. If you have ever found yourself frustrated in an argument with your kid, your spouse, or maybe an employee, the framework we're looking at today offers a remarkably precise, almost mathematical solution to all that interpersonal friction. We're going to be exploring what's known as the 3-7 rule. So let's get started.
There is no one in the world who hopes their words won't be listened to. Sounds incredibly simple, right? But honestly, it perfectly hits the nail on the head when it comes to the core human condition. The master delivering this lecture anchors the entire lesson on this one universal truth. When we open our mouths, we deeply, deeply desire for the person across from us to actually absorb what we're saying. And yet, how often do we feel like we're just talking to a brick wall? Or maybe the tougher question, how often are we that brick wall for someone else?
All right, let's look at Section 1, the struggle to listen.
To really wrap our heads around this philosophy, we got to look at the real-world story that actually kicked this whole thing off. The student asking the question experienced what we can call a 100-day catalyst. According to her account, her family went through this massive spiritual awakening when her late grandmother's spirit remained with her eldest daughter for 100 days. Now, whether you're into the supernatural or not, the text outlines that this profound event was meant to help resolve past family issues. But more importantly for our explainer today, it acted as this intense catalyst that pushed the mother and her daughters to start studying these Jungbub teachings together in the first place.
But here's the catch. Even with all that shared spiritual study, the mother admits she is struggling big time. Look at the gap between her reality and the ideal state here. In her current reality, she openly admits that when her daughters speak to her, she pushes back. It takes her a really long time to just open her mind and accept their words. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Yet the ideal state taught by the master is a state where a person naturally speaks only when their inner mass is completely full. But what exactly does that mean?
Which brings us to Section 2, filling your inner mass.
Okay, so to stop butting heads with everyone around us, we literally need to rethink how conversation works from the ground up. We have to look at conversation not just as trading words back and forth, but as a literal exchange of energy. Here is the absolute foundational concept you need to know, the Korean term jilyang, or inner mass. In this philosophy, your inner mass is the accumulated quality, weight, or energetic density of your internal knowledge and understanding. Think of yourself as a vessel. Every experience, every piece of wisdom, every time you truly listen to someone, you are adding weight and quality to your internal mass. And it's this mass that dictates your natural energetic urge to either speak out loud or listen quietly.
So the golden rule is this. When your mass is lacking, meaning you don't quite grasp the situation, or you just haven't absorbed enough info yet, your primary absolute duty is to listen. You have to fill the void. Conversely, when your mass is full and heavy with understanding, you don't have to force your opinion on anyone. You're just going to naturally speak and your words will carry immense weight. The mother was clashing with her daughters because she was trying to speak from a place of lacking mass, rather than just absorbing their words to fill herself up first.
All right, Section 3, the 3-7 communication rule.
So how do we actually fix a lack of mass? Well, the master gives us some pretty strict math to follow. Imagine you listen to someone talk for 10 minutes. If you then turn around and speak to them for 30 minutes, yeah, that is a huge problem. That is a disastrous conversation. You're forcing out way more mass than you actually took in. But an effective conversation flips this entirely. If you listen for 10 minutes, you're only energetically allotted 3 minutes of speaking time. You cap it right there.
It really all boils down to the 3-7 formula. 70% listening, 30% speaking. In any given interaction, your main job is to hold back. You must dedicate 70% of the energetic space to absorbing the other person's words without putting up any resistance. By holding back that 70%, you ensure that the 30% you do speak is perfectly distilled, deeply impactful, and most importantly, actually absorbed by the listener. If you want your words heard, you absolutely have to earn the right to speak them by doing the listening first.
Let's look at how this plays out in real life. Section 4, applying the rule in the family.
Honestly, practicing this is usually hardest in our own homes. The master lays down some super strict ground rules for parents here. First off, you got to listen to everything your child says, whether you think it's a profound insight or totally useless. Second, never interrupt. You are explicitly forbidden from cutting them off or dismissing them by saying something like, "Why are you being saying that?" And the third point, this is the deepest one.
Recognize that a child only speaks because their current environment demands it. There is always a valid environmental reason prompting their words. If you dismiss what they're saying, you're literally ignoring their entire reality. So here is the actual game plan, the step-by-step conversational loop you need to totally reset your family dynamic. Step 1, listen fully without interrupting. Absorb all their mass. Step 2, do not respond immediately. You gotta wait for the right speaking environment to naturally arise. Step 3, when that moment finally comes, you deliver your 30% and not a single drop more. You stop. Step 4, you stay still and just allow them to process. Because you only use 30%, they aren't going to feel overwhelmed. They'll happily accept it and probably start talking again, which kicks off that beautiful loop all over again.
And guess what? This isn't just for kids. Section 5, applying the rule in the workplace.
This exact same energetic math scales all the way up to executive leadership. The instruction for bosses is pretty blunt. Accept everything your employees say first. Just like a parent has to absorb the child's environment, a boss or a manager has to absorb the reality of their employees. True leadership, according to this explainer, isn't about top-down dictation at all. It's about having the massive internal capacity to ingest the full mass of the employee's words, their complaints, their ideas, the whole shebang without any immediate resistance.
And then, bam, we arrive back at that critical threshold, 30%. When it is finally time for the leader to speak, they are bound by the exact same natural law. You give your 30% direction, and then you must stay completely still. The text warns that even if you feel like you have way more to add, actually scratch that. Even if you're absolutely positive you have more good advice to give, don't do it. Zip it. Once you hit that 30% allowance, you stop. Because pushing past that boundary doesn't just annoy your team, it triggers a profound energetic consequence.
Because if you don't, well, things get intense. Section 6, the Jungbub era consequences.
So why is this rule so rigid? What actually happens if we just keep talking and talking? Well, to understand the stakes, we have to look at the era we're currently living in. According to the teachings, we are living in the Jungbub era. This translates to the righteous law or right course era. It basically represents a time where cosmic leniency is totally gone. Back in the day, you might have gotten away with acting out of alignment. But in the Jungbub era, living incorrectly or acting against these natural energetic laws brings immediate, unavoidable consequences right back to the individual. There is a direct karmic blowback to how we treat people.
This blowback shows up as what they call a minus return. The natural law states that if you force more words onto a listener than they actually have the capacity to accept, meaning you blow past your allotted 30%, that excess energy doesn't just vanish into thin air. It turns into a minus and boomerangs directly back to you, the speaker. So you aren't just annoying the person you're talking to, you're actively damaging your own energy and bringing negative consequences straight down on yourself.
Every single time we open our mouths, we are making a choice. We're either respecting the energetic balance, but we're violating it. So I want to leave you with a question to chew on before your next conversation. Are you going to create a minus for yourself by overspeaking? Or will you hold back, do your 70% listening, and actually build a real connection? Keep that math in mind. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.